from the other side. Welcome to Total Disclosure. My name is Ty, and I am the host and creator of the show. I want to start off by saying thank you to every single person listening and watching on your chosen platform. Remember to go above and beyond by following and rating the show. It's free and it tremendously helps us with getting to new audiences and helping with our algorithm. You can also help support the show by joining our membership on either Anchor or YouTube. For as low as the price of a cup of joe every month, you could be listening to ad-free content, gaining early access, and getting a yearly gift. Making this show is a passion, however, it isn't cheap. And this is how we keep the show free for you, the listener. Thank you in advance. Now let's get the party started.
Blanket statements to cover the entire UFO phenomenon over the past 20 years.
Welcome to Total Disclosure. I've always wanted to do that turnaround thing, and I just got to do it. Welcome to Total Disclosure, everybody. I am super stoked to be here today. We are live. I decided to just do it live. Why not? Because it was so kind of in the middle of the week. Today, we're here with Stephen Bassett to talk about the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. Why it was gutted, but there's still some good news. And he's going to explain all that. He's our resident, basically DC guy. He's a reporter. He's been, UFO activist. One of the first ever registered. We've talked to him on the show so many times now that it's just incredible because he's truly one of my heroes. And from being able to watch him on the screen to being able to talk to him in person as a friend has been truly an honor. And I'm also joined by another person who was the original UFO lobbyist, Teresa Tyndall, who's been joining me for quite a few shows as of recently, which is, I think, really fun. It's been fun. Let me get that out of your face. How is everybody? Sorry, it's a lot of moving parts. I forgot how the live works. Got to get back into the routine. Did you like my spin?
It was awesome. You pulled that off perfect.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
Well done.
The show is complete. We can go home. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Just kidding. But Steve, no, seriously, thank you for being here. I know you're busy. You're a busy guy. You got so much going on. And you just had a wonderful appearance on that UFO podcast with Andy, and I definitely want to make sure we had you on here to talk about the UAP Disclosure Act and what's been going on with people like Senator Mike Turner, Schumer. There's been a little bit of a battle about language in this amendment that's been proposed in the NDAA. So maybe you could help clear some things up.
Well, the battle is over.
Okay.
The original bill, the original submission by the Senate was called the UAP Disclosure Act of 2024.
2024. Yes.
Did I love that name or what? Right. That was no accident. All right. They called it that for a reason. They were acknowledging the citizen work, citizen effort, and so forth. Thank you very much, Senator. Actually, Schumer and Rounds and Reed.
Mike Rounds, yeah.
Okay. And it was the bill. It was the final piece of the legislative puzzle or the structure that they needed to put in. It might not have been as extensive and profound as it was. They might have gone something a little less soft. A little softer, except because of David Grush. David Grush was the wild card in the deck, the joker in the deck that turned up. They knew he might, and ultimately he did. He turned up. He was never stopped. And since he came forward, he has not been repudiated by anybody that matters. Now, that changed everything. And so, in order to discuss this bill properly, I have to quickly update people in terms of Grush. Grush came forward as a whistleblower on June the 5th out of nowhere. I did not see it coming. Nobody saw it coming.
I don't think anyone did.
Plenty of people inside the government that knew he was there. And he is a legitimate whistleblower. There are very few of those, at least in a very public way. There are a lot of witnesses, and there's a big difference between the two. Don't call somebody a whistleblower who's just a witness. But he's a whistleblower because he's saying it. And he claims the policy of truth embargo is illegal. And he, I think, possibly was concerned he might be violating the law coming out, but he didn't have to. He can be a whistleblower without violating the law. And he came forward because he was dissatisfied. This is a 2-year process. I can go into details, but whatever. It wasn't working out. And he decided to go public in a big way. So the article is printed in the brief. It's written by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal, who wrote the December articles in the part of the December articles in 2017. And then, of course, he gives this interview to Ross Coulthard all at once, June 5. Big deal. Right. I was at the conference at the time, Indian Wells, at the Renaissance Hotel. We just finished up the contact in the desert. We were in the final day of intensives and all that kind of stuff. And the news broke in the morning. Literally, everybody's running around the hotel, all excited. So we all happened together, about 200 people, and we watched it live as it happened. We watched history happening together. It's fantastic. Okay, so, boy, he dropped an ontological bomb in the soup. By going public and confirming that there is non-human technology and non-human bodies. In that instance, he confirmed Roswell. He also essentially informally confirmed the extraterrestrial presence, a kind of informal disclosure.
Yeah.
He was secondhand. It was secondhand information. However, it was secondhand information from somebody that was in the position working for the UAP task force to get that secondhand information.
Right.
Something that some people overlooked is that because of his extensive career in the intelligence community, working in a number of ways, he had many contacts. And so he contacted some of these people who had classified status and said, can you confirm it? And many of them did. And so what he came forward, as far as I'm concerned, I had no doubt that it was exactly true. Boom. Now what? Okay, this process has been underway for years. We're headed towards the hearings. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a person working for the UAP task force, or formerly working, comes forward and says, yeah, we have multiple tech. Well, it took 39 days for the Congress, or at least the people working on this in Congress, to respond. And the way they responded was very, very significant. So in the 39 days from the point that he came forward, right, got a tremendous amount of press. And all of that is on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, in the news media archive.
Yeah, all those links are in the description below.
Excellent. Scores and scores of articles in mainstream media mentioning non-human technology, not bodies. Right? So there it is.
Literally an amendment that said non-human intelligence. I think I counted 21 to 23 times.
Non-human is mentioned 25 times in the UAP Disclosure Act.
Unreal.
It took 39 days to respond, and the response was profound. What the Intelligence Committee decided to do is, and with Schumer's help, is to go basically to throw the long bomb. In other words, we were getting close to a touchdown. We're winning, but this speeded things up. And so rather than run a bunch of more plays, some ground game, just throw the bomb, throw right for the end zone. And that's what they
Hail Mary.
And so he comes out and basically says, I am putting language into this, the present language, which was about, 11 pages or something. And it was basically an amendment. I'm putting language into this bill that's going to extend it to 73 pages, and it's going to call it an act, the UAP Disclosure Act. And he talks about what it is, but and mentions aspects of it. The press is covering it. They focused on the eminent domain, and I get that, but there's much more in that act than that. But the eminent domain is what got their attention. Why? And this was the maneuver. Total genius. By coming forward and hitting them with eminent domain right away, which would have happened later. I mean, we could have gone all the way to disclosure by the president, and the eminent domain could have come up afterwards, but they decided to put it out right now. Why? Several reasons. One, by stating that I have put language in a bill that says the United States government has eminent domain on any non-human tech in the hands of private entities, including Lockheed Martin and the rest of the contractors. He just confirmed there's a non-human intelligence here and non-human tech,
Right.
which confirms Grush, which
Right.
takes all the pressure off of Grush. He's just established that Grush was telling the truth. Okay, he sends a message to the Senate if there was any doubts that he totally supports what the Senate is doing, Senate Intel Committee is doing, and he sends a message to the military intelligence contractors that we own that technology.
Can I butt in real quick? Other people have raised concern over the eminent domain. Even guys like Ross Coulthart said that it was maybe a little bit strong-handed. And like, what would that mean for private people? Like say Jacques Vallée, he's got a bunch of material. Does that give the government the right to walk into his house and
when
take
you
the
say he has a bunch of material, what are you referring to?
The materials that he's been studying for years now. And I think everybody knows that he has at least some. We're not talking about a full UFO, but maybe pieces and shards. I don't think the government would be too interested. But what would stop them from going that far?
What it means is, yeah, it would affect him.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is, and this is again a misunderstanding, eminent domain means the government has a right to, quote, take it. All right. It doesn't mean it will take it. It just means it has a right to take it.
Okay.
And he's also declaring that the government owns it. All right. Which is non-trivial as well. So we own it. We got eminent domain. And so everybody throw up their hand. Oh my God, this is awful. No, it just means they have a right to take it. And that doesn't mean they will. And if they did take that tech back, which includes what, if somebody's got little pieces of a saucer, the government can take that if it wants it. It may not. All right. Are they going to send stormtroopers out to break it? The act even stated you had 300 days to come up with a report of what you have. I mean, this is not a rush to anything. It is a maneuver, and this is the genius of this maneuver, right? He backs up Grush, and he puts this thing. He puts this very powerful thing out there that goes right to the heart of, I guess, the truth embargo, which involves the technologies that we've obtained, in many cases, not all cases, being put in the hands of private contractors that are immune from the FOIA law. Okay. But more importantly, he forced them out of cover. And I think that Schumer knew that eminent domain would not survive the conference process. It would be pulled out of the bill. But it didn't matter because it was up on the Senate's legislative site for months. Went up on July the 14th. Right. So it's sending this big message out. We're serious about this. We even expect to have eminent domain. And what that did was force them out of cover. And here is what happened. For the next months, starting on July the 14th, the civilian world, the civilian contractors, not Jacques Vallée, but the people that have been working on this tech and paid billions of dollars to work on it, study it, examine it, try to draw conclusions from it. And that's great. They're doing their job. Yeah. But have had to sit on it for decades, unable to capitalize on it, unable to patent it and then develop to make huge sums of money for their shareholders because that truth embargo would not allow it. They've been sitting patiently And then all of a sudden, the government comes and says, we got eminent domain. And so they go, no way. And so what did they do? They got in touch with their intermediaries. They couldn't come forward in person. They asked their intermediaries to get in touch with those members of Congress who were going to be involved in the reconciliation of the bill, or affect the reconciliation of the bill. And as it happened, are mostly Republicans. And as it happens, the Republicans get more defense contractor donations for their campaigns than the Democrats, but the Democrats do as well. But it focuses on the Republicans. And the two that get possibly as much as anybody is Mike Turner and Mike Rogers, who happen to be the chair of the Armed Services and this House Intel Committee. And so they're getting huge sums of money in their in donations to their campaigns. And they're getting
Lockheed,
that are saying, you got to stop this. Okay, you got to stop this. And so naturally that gets around. We learn this very quickly. And so what did we just learn? The defense contractors are pushing back on the bill to protect their rights to the non-human technology, which is another confirmation we have non-human technology. They had no choice. Okay.
So what you're saying is essentially that by they were in a kind of a catch-22. If they let it pass, it would be a put upon them. Mm-hmm. But they fought against it, showing that there's something to hide.
Confirming they have it. Okay.
Right.
And so brilliant move by Schumer. And he probably didn't expect it to pass. He may have hoped that the eminent domain would be a trading card that he could use to get through the other stuff, because the other stuff is even more important than the eminent domain. I mean, if the defense contractors make billions of dollars, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Would it be wrong? In other words, it needs to be shared with the American people and not just shared with their shareholders, but whatever. But the bill, the act also included a president-appointed review board that was going to have the highest level clearance to be able to go and look at anything they want to. Members of certain key committees that were going to have oversight over this process, that would also be given the highest level of clearances, right, as this process went forward. And what was this process called? It was called the Controlled Disclosure Program. And what was that? It was a controlled process in which everything the government has, everything, every doc, every file, every piece of tech, everything would ultimately come forward, be reviewed, made public, and end up in the National Archives. Not right away. It might take years for it all to happen, but something was going to start right away. In other words, immediately they're going to start having stuff moving forward into this process and being given to the public. So there'd be plenty for the public to learn about and see. And it went further. It stated that anything older than 25 years, meaning anything that was signed or put in place 25 years or older, 1998, would be fast-tracked. So we'd have something in the mill right away. So it basically set the entire structure up to bring it all out eventually into the public domain and in the archives. And it gave the people overseeing this subpoena power, the ability to subpoena anybody in the secret world, not because they're criminal, but because we want to talk to you. And not necessarily publicly, privately. In other words, we want to talk to you classified. And if they say, screw you, I'm not going to talk to you. I work in a USAP and you can go to hell. They could say, no, you're going to go to prison. And so subpoena power, all of that was in this bill. And I think that Schumer was thinking that, they're going to push back against that for sure, but we'll trade eminent domain for that. Okay. So that goes out on the 14th of July and they go to work. All right. And the process gets underway. And what we learned is that Turner and Rogers, and to some degree Mike Johnson, were definitely favoring pulling as much of this as possible out of the bill. Would they win? Maybe, maybe not. Except then we learned that somebody else had joined the fight, and that was Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Now, McConnell is more powerful than those other gentlemen.
And he's also more unstable.
I'm not going to go there. Mitch McConnell is lobbying the senators. He's lobbying the Senate. This is too much. Let's come back on it. All right. But that's that. What does that mean? Then he did something else. We learned about this. McConnell went to the House. He got in touch with Turner and Rogers and Mike Johnson, and he started making the case to them why this bill had to be significantly modified. And they were on board. Plus, they're getting pressure from people that are representing people that donate them millions of dollars. And so the thing got serious, and he had leverage. Because when McConnell is talking to the senators, he can say, if you guys don't pull this stuff out of the bill, the House is not going to pass it. They're not going to pass the NDAA, right? And so with that all in place, they go into conference, and the battle begins, all right? And it got very intense. I jumped in, got real excited, got a little ahead of my skis. It was further complicated, of course, by the fact that, and this is non-trivial, that because of Grush, the House got into this early. In other words, 12 days after Schumer makes his very significant chess move, the House makes its move. And this move was instituted by Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, and Nancy Mace, and a couple of others. They said, we want in and we want a hearing. Grush wanted a hearing. He gave them that hearing. They bring in Grush, Fravor, and Grays and hold the subcommittee hearing, which takes the whole
historic
thing to another level. Because now Grush is confirmed everything under oath. And so the House is now a player here. And so when the conference battle begins, the House people step right into it and say, no. We want this to happen. We want this to happen. We want to end the truth embargo, basically. Now that's complicating things. It got more complicated because one of the things that these people who are heroes tried to do was, well, look, we'll help. We want to put some language in the House side of the bill that's not as complicated, but it's easier to understand and it will help get stuff forward. They were trying to help. I misread that as this was some maneuver in which that bill was intended, this very short, was intended to replace the UAP Act. Got a little out ahead of my skis, had to go and pull that back as I realized, no, that's not what's happened. And I've since talked to Tim Burchett about that. And so now the House is involved. Okay, so everything goes on. We're watching it. We're raising hell. There's a lot of press about it. And ultimately, they got what they wanted. Okay, and I can read you exactly what it was, but essentially, they pulled the subpoena power, they pulled the eminent domain, they pulled the classification abilities of the people that were no longer empowered anyway, and they pulled the UAP review board. Okay, but if you go read the bill, and it's up on my website, you go to paradigmresearchgroup.org, as you pointed out. I've got both bills up there. You can compare them. I put them into very readable format, not like the Act, and I've highlighted key points. If you read the new bill, which is 1/3 the size of the UAP Disclosure Act, it comes in around 11 pages. What you find is the essence of the original bill is there. Okay. Non-human tech is mentioned only 2 times, but it is mentioned. Non-human, it is mentioned. They could have pulled it. They didn't. They put non-human in there, which essentially confirms back to Grush and so forth.
Right.
They talk about disclosure. They talk about bringing the information out. They talk about review. They talk about the postponement aspects of it, which means that it can be postponed. Their language is more favorable to the government in that area, but it still talks about a process in which things are moving forward. Some is postponed and what have you. Basically, the essence of the original bill is there. It just doesn't have the enforcement teeth. But I don't care. It doesn't matter. The 4th bill essentially furthers the original 3, and it sets the stage for what comes next. Now that bill is going to be signed on the 21st, there is no reason whatsoever for the Senate, which you now include the Senate Intel Committee, which really now includes Schumer,
Mhm.
who has a great deal of influence over that committee to call in the witnesses ready to testify and hold the damn hearing we've been waiting for a half a year. Once that hearing takes place, and approximately anywhere between 12 and 20 witnesses are able to testify under oath for about a week, with an audience in the many millions, the stage is set for the president to come forward and disclose. Come forward and say, look, yeah, I've watched the hearing. I've said this countless times. I've seen it. I've watched it. Talked to the DOD, talked to my people, talked to my wife, and we all agree. Pretty obvious. Non-human presence here in the world. We're not alone. Bing. That's disclosure. Bada bing. And then, well,
do you think that's likely, Steve? Do you really think that there's a high probability that could happen? I mean, it sounds like you're very encouraged that an announcement like that from the president could come. Are they going to say, special announcement Friday night, tune in?
It's supposed to happen. It's where we've been heading, and I'm doing what I can to make sure it happens. And that includes the fact that since November 15th, I have either given or have now scheduled 49 interviews.
Yeah.
That's 1.5 interviews a day.
Right.
I'm going to be scheduling more. By the time we get to early January, I will have probably done 60 to 65 live or reported podcasts on this issue. And I'm pounding the same message forward. And I'm doing more than that. So all I can say that it's in play. It is a defined target. People want it. It's getting lots of press coverage. And so it's realistic. So that is what is supposed to happen. Now, guess what? If the president discloses, I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen. Well, a lot's going to happen, but I have a pretty good idea within a very short amount of time. Could be a days, could be a week. The entire UAP Disclosure Act is going to be resubmitted.
Just right off the top.
As a standalone bill. The whole enchilada, including eminent domain. And now the House
will have
Senate
precedence for it.
Will have to vote on this in the post-disclosure world in which all 8 billion people know there is non-humans here. We have ET tech. And now they're going to have to vote against it in the post-disclosure world. I say the bill sails through Congress, right?
So Steve, do you see this being a huge card then for Biden in the next election if he's the disclosure president?
I don't really care. Biden will be the disclosure president because he was the president that got the last chair when the music stopped. It's not because he's been
championing it
or pushing for it. He's never said anything about it. He just happens to be that president. How it affects his political prospects, who knows? There's many possibilities. It might give him extra capital that gets him a win. He might decide that being the disclosure president is the ultimate final act. What
president wouldn't think that? Like, that's a way. If you're on the real bottom end of the poll as far as like public the way they see you, right? And you can change it with just one press conference. You could turn it all around and cement yourself in history as not only the person who changed the world, but the person who stood up finally and said, we are not alone as a president. I mean, that would be a powerful thing to do.
And the most historical president, that would truly make him the most historical president in the history, not only of the country, but of the world. And then, Steve, do you suspect other countries would follow? Because I think they would. I've seen a lot of movement in other countries, maybe not necessarily from their parliaments, but certainly like the Vatican's putting out a lot. There's a lot coming from Australia. You think other countries?
China is having a.
Yeah, they'll all follow. They'll all follow within days.
Yeah.
Days. I mean, but boom, 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 boom. The first head of state that might follow, because the country has got a huge level of interest in the subject, right, would be El Presidente de Mexico, Carlos Obrador. It wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't first, but they will all follow. All right. And in terms of let me tell you, whatever President Biden thinks about the effect that being the disclosure president will have on his politics, I would be utterly shocked if he even talked about that in private, because there's nothing private anymore. You don't want to politicize this one iota. It's one of the reasons that he's staying out of it. He doesn't want to be publicly connected to this because he doesn't want it to be political. Its ultimate political impact will be non-trivial, but let me make, after watching politics for a lot of years now, let me just say two things. One, the polls right now don't mean jack. All right, period. They don't mean jack. They love to talk about them. They love to take them. I don't even care. I don't ignore them. Right. And secondly, there are things going on this year and what could be, hopefully not, one of the most bizarre, awful, disgusting political campaigns of all time. It's going to be hell to watch, though disclosure can change all that. But there are things that are pending politically in this year that are going to have far more impact, believe it or not, on the outcome of this election than President Biden confirming the extraterrestrial presence. What can I say?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is a lot that these Congress people do have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm sure that UFOs are on their plate every single day, and there's a lot more that's happening in the world. I mean, we're a couple sticks and stones from China making a move on Taiwan, and the world really kicking off in a bad way. So if that were to happen, if China were to make a move on Taiwan, and something like that were to break out, do you think this puts disclosure on a total derailment, as it would essentially be heading into World War III anyway?
I am glad you brought that up, Tyler.
Thank you.
You know why? Because, young man, you are going to spend a lot of years in the post-disclosure world.
I hope so.
You're going to see things that I will not see. Things that even in my life I never dreamed could happen. I mean, I know a lot is going to happen, but there's things going to happen I can't even imagine. So you're going to see all that. And I want you to be able to see it and not, die in a nuclear holocaust. Which brings me to
a
fairly important point. Right? Why? Right? Why does the Senate have to hold the hearing in January as opposed to 2025 or October or June? Why? There is a reason. And boy, am I hammering this home. Right? Okay. There are some very logical reasons why, but basically, nuts and bolts reason. But these are the two major reasons why they have to happen, and that's where your future, my future too, but yours particularly, and Teresa, who is very, very young, I should tell you.
Teresa's youth all over it.
She's a young girl, and so here's why. There's two ways that things are going to go in 2024, right? And the disclosure issue is involved in both. Here is the political one, all right?
Okay.
And this is in the hands of the Senate. I mean, the Senate Intel Committee. Absolutely. They can actually make the call here. Either disclosure will happen before this presidential campaign is really underway, which doesn't really start until the first primary. I'm not a big fan of the Iowa caucus, whatever they're doing. It's all great. Don't care. But the first primary, that's when things get underway. We start our elections early here. It is a major problem we have, and they cost a fortune. This election is going to cost $6 billion at least. Okay. They can do that, get that done. The president can disclose before this campaign starts, or they can put it off until some further point down the line during this year, or maybe even to 2025. And here is the difference between those two decisions. If they don't get this done, 2,000 balloted candidates running for 435 House seats, 33 Senate seats, and about 20 governor seats, as well as a significant number of fairly important state Senate seats and so forth. 2,000 balloted candidates are going to be going out and doing their usual thing, raising millions of dollars for a job that pays $200,000 a year, lying through their teeth, making fools of themselves, right? Being completely inauthentic, being super hyper partisan, attacking anybody that's against them, and generally making the whole year one just miserable year, right? Embarrassing the country and themselves, as we do. At the same time, hanging over their head is multiple confirmation of non-human presence in the world, and unable to talk about it, in the sense that I can't talk about that. And David Grush, who's this guy? Never heard of him. Non-human tech. What are you talking about? You know, they're going to have to make even bigger asses of themselves than they normally make. It's going to be a disaster, right? Okay, so that could happen, or we could get disclosure in January, early February. How will that go? Well, here's what'll happen. All 2,000 of these fine candidates are going to recognize that the confirmation of the ET presence is kind of a big deal, and they probably should know something about it, and they're going to start reading these books back here, or they'll read Kindle. They'll go on Amazon and put YouTube in the search engine, and up will come 150 documentaries. They'll watch those. They'll watch podcasts. They'll get some sense, some understanding about what is happening, what has happened, this issue, to the best that they can. And so consequently, they will go out to campaign, and they're going to have this unbelievably important issue, which is completely nonpartisan, to talk about. And so someone will say, well, sir, what is your view on how we might deal with this non-human technology? And the answer is not going to be the whole non-human technology thing is a complete ruse created by the evil Democrats who are now, and it doesn't exist, or it is a misguided thing because they already have that technology. They're working on it in an underground facility underneath the Democratic National Committee headquarters, or whatever the hell. They're going to say, well, this is an extremely important thing, and my thinking on this is that, and whatever. And people go, oh, it's so nice to hear you talk like a human being.
Right.
They will have an issue that they can focus on that affects every living person on the planet, not to mention everybody in their state or district, that they can talk about like an intelligent human being. It will suck the venom out of this snake that is coming to eat us all, and make this election actually kind of profound. That's the difference between these two decisions. And then finally, and this is the payoff, when the United States gets a brand new government in January of 2025, one that we will have spent $6 billion electing, we will actually know something about what all of these new senators and congressmen, governors, and so forth, and the president too, by the way, know something about what they think we should do in the post-disclosure world. What are their views about it? What how do they approach it? And what are their views of the truth embargo? We will actually know that. Whether we like their position or not, we will elected a ET, truth embargo informed government, for better or for worse. That is the difference politically. It is night and day. And we got to have disclosure. I can't go through another election like this. I swear to God, this is going to kill me. I will die before the vote in November. I will eventually be off myself, or just casually walk in front of a bus because I'm just so depressed.
Oh, please don't say that.
Okay, now here is the other reason why it has to happen in January. Okay, and this is where it gets really serious. All right, and I'm known for this, so you've heard this before, but I'm going to tell it again. The situation in the planet right now is bad.
It's very bad.
Very, very bad. Okay, the reasons for it are kind of well known. We could spend hours going over those reasons, but we kind of know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and just to hit the top few, One, we're closer to nuclear war than we've ever been. And I'm not, don't take my word for it. There are countless numbers of officials within the military intelligence community, as well as top level agency people and others who are coming forward and saying it. Ever since the Ukraine-Russia war began, there has been constant discussion about the fact that we are closer to nuclear war than ever. It could happen at any minute. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists is now at 90 seconds to midnight. We are at DEFCON 2 in several of the commands around the world, DEFCON 3 in the United States. If one tactical nuke is used in the Ukraine war, just one shell, that makes it a nuclear war. That takes the European Command Center to DEFCON 1. And there's a misunderstanding. Some people think you have to have global nuclear war to be in DEFCON 1. No, one nuke in a war zone, that's nuclear war. That's DEFCON 1. That could happen tomorrow, but it's worse. We have been living in a world for years now where we do not have a complete inventory or cannot account for all of the nuclear weapons, material, and devices that we built tens of thousands. And the government doesn't want you to know that, but in fact, it's common knowledge. There's no way. I think it was Rumsfeld said we can't account for $2 trillion of the defense budget. Well, if we can't account for $2 trillion, we can't account for the nuclear. And so consequently, we have always been on the edge of what would be truly awful. And that is a terrorist, non-state operator nuclear event, where a non-state operator, non-state organization,
right, like Hamas,
a city. Okay, pick a city. They're not going to pick just any city. They're going to pick one that will get people's attention. And so, if that happens, the situation is unbelievable, because either no one will take credit for it, or 100 terrorist organizations will take credit for it. And the country in which that event takes place, what do they do? Who do they respond to? Who do they attack? Who do they nuke? Maybe the decision is nuke everybody. I don't know, but we that could happen tomorrow, and people, well, they don't want to hear about it.
I want to ask. You know, I know a lot of people always say this, and it's like, you know, we can't depend on some, you know, for the most part, people would say this. Well, we can't depend on some maybe non-human intelligence to come in and step in and save us.
Oh, we cannot.
We can't. And I definitely agree with that. I agree with that. But do you think there is I mean, Grush does also talk about this pact or communication between humans and NHI. And if there's any truth to that, then they clearly know what's going on in our situation here on Earth. Could we call in a favor? You know, could we? Yeah, I'm not saying you. I get that. That's rhetoric. I guess. But is there any way that this NHI is maybe partly behind the reason that there's this big push? Like, listen, you need to unite your people. Like, you need to get this thing together, because right now you're down this path, and it ends in ways that we've seen happen. And it's just chaos and utter destruction in the universe, and we can't let you do that.
Well, Ty, I think that's happened before. I mean, theologically, we have a lot of evidence of things like that happening in the past. I mean, we actually have evidence of nuclear weapons being used in Sodom and Gomorrah. They have trinitite on the outside of archaeological,
which we talked about. Yeah.
You know, it's documented that there have been a lot of worlds that have come and gone, and we have free will. Apparently, I mean, allegedly, that's what's said. You know, so why would, you know, our world now, you know, the Hopis say that 4 or 5 worlds have come and gone, and at the end
this is the 4th,
world, people come to get them and they take them underground. You know, and there's Prophecy Rock, you know, in Arizona, and it's I believe it's Hopi, And they very clearly draw two different lines. There's one line where if you want to stay with the old ways, and there's another line if you want to go with the new ways. And
one ends and one doesn't.
Very
right?
abrupt.
Yeah.
So I think we have to really think about who we want to be and where we want to go, because I think there is a lot of evidence that civilizations have come and gone in the past, and why would we
And
be?
maybe we wouldn't be special.
Maybe we're not as special as we think.
And this brings me to a good point for Steve and for you both. In all the years that you guys have seen, I mean, this has been widely bipartisan in a world that is ever divided as it ever has been. We see this one issue laying waste to that dividend for the most part. But somehow, some way, through the veil of democracy, right? People like Mike Turner, Mike Rogers, and whoever is paying for their campaigns reached through the veil and crushed a bill that could have set the world on a new path.
They didn't crush the bill.
They didn't. Okay, I'm sorry. You explained that.
They took certain things out. They took some powers out, but the essence of the bill remains. And it was inevitable that it would get politicized at some point. Well, it wasn't inevitable, but it did get politicized. And part of the reason for that was Grush. If Grush had not come forward, I think they could have proceeded with a much less intense bill. It would advance things and set things up for the hearings, and with a lot of less strum and drime. But Grush changed all that, and he forced a lot of the hand of Schumer. Schumer went with the decision that he made, and when the pushback began, the very first, how would you say, the very first, please, I'm sorry, hang on.
Don't worry about it. That's actually the president calling for Bassett, guys. Biden's calling.
The first politicization of this issue, frankly, was from Schumer. As the pushback began, Schumer went forward, and I forget in the arena, but he came forward and made a statement that the Republicans were cutting the bill, and there was a pushback against the bill, and it was the Republicans that were doing it, and I know that he didn't want to do that, but I think he had no choice. So that politicized it. Okay. Now the Republicans, though, I mean, this is where it gets interesting. Why I'm hoping to meet again with Tim Burchett very soon, and maybe some of the other members of the House, is that while that did politicize it, remember, we have these House people who are really vocal and out in front on and ending the truth embargo. And so ultimately the nonpartisan aspect of this will prevail. But this was about money, right? It wasn't so much about politics. It was about money. It was about the billions and billions of dollars that defense contractors were looking forward to making in a post-disclosure world. And they were thinking they might lose that. They might not. Right. Okay. The government could take eminent domain and then come back and say, okay, we want to develop this technology. We want you to be involved. You get a piece of the action, whatever, but it's not going to strictly be, that decision is not going to be strictly on the basis of serving your shareholders. It's going to be
right. It's not UFO by Lockheed. It's UFO by U.S. government and Lockheed.
Yeah. So, but they decided they didn't want to take any chances. So it kind of got politicized. But to finish the point I was making, is that the situation right now is fraught. I have said for years that nuclear war was inevitable, and it is. It is almost inevitable. I wished I could say that disclosure would make it very unlikely, but probably not. We're still going to have that nuclear event. We may still have that terrorist event. So if that is the case, the decision is fairly straightforward. We can have that event happen pre-disclosure, or we can have that event happen post-disclosure. And that brings me to a very important truth that I didn't learn. Well, there's a lot of things I didn't learn when I was young. God knows I wish I could go back. But I've learned now, whether you're talking about a person and their life, or whether you're talking about a country and its
Survival.
passage, what determines how successful or how much your life is helpful and productive and happy, how your country fares, is less about what happens to you or your country, but how you or your country react to what happens. All right. This is a lesson that some people learn, some people don't. But the simplest way to describe it in a metaphor, and I'm not trying, I hope I don't insult anybody, but two men with very similar backgrounds and education can go off to the same war. Iraq, pick a war. We've had tons of them. They can have basically the same experiences. One comes back and is destroyed and ends up living in a tent somewhere, dying of alcoholism, and another one goes on to get a PhD and becomes a head of a firm. The difference between these two men is not what happened to them, it's how they reacted to them. And
Yes.
this is what has been plaguing us. It's not that bad things keep happening, it's that we keep reacting to them the same way we have for 12,000 years. And so to put this in further perspective, given the reaction of the United States to having some of our buildings damaged and some people killed in 2001, right? What do you think the reaction of the United States would be if, I don't know, Baltimore, as has happened in Tom Clancy's book, The Sum of All Fears, is destroyed by a nuclear attack by a non-state operator? What do you think our reaction to that will be? So
Not good.
That is what we'll probably have, that nuclear event. The question is, how are we going to react? Is it going to escalate to global nuclear war like everybody's been predicting? Okay. Now, and here's the simple point. If that event happens before disclosure, we know damn well how it's going to go. But if it happens after disclosure, it's a totally different matter. Why? Because everybody in the world at that point, including all the leaders and all the generals, the admirals, and the secret spies and everybody in the world will know we're not alone. We're not alone in the universe.
And what we do next will matter.
Very likely, shortly after disclosure, you're going to find information coming out about just exactly that was not previously available. That's talking about how close we are to interstellar travel, how close we are to solving the relativity problem, and be able to move from star to star like the ETs do. That'll be out there. Without getting into open contact, we're in another place, and the world is different. Everybody is seeing it through a different lens. They're seeing possibilities, exciting possibilities. And so when that stupid thing happens, Taiwan being invaded by China, somebody launches a tactical nuke in Ukraine, when that stupid things happen, the world may react differently. Our leaders may step back and go, that's bad, that's awful. But under the circumstances, let's don't get carried away here. Now, I know this sounds simple-minded, but it's not. It's an entirely different situation. And so we may react better. And so the decision that sits on the desk of Schumer, Warner, and Rubio is, do you want disclosure to happen in January so that if one of those bad things happens, we can deal with it? Or do you want to just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off until that event takes place? And I can assure you, if an Israeli city or a Muslim city or a United States city is taken out by a medium-sized nuke, the entire disclosure process is tabled. It is off the table. It is out of the question. It will not be considered. We will be dealing with a raft of other things, but not that. And the ETs may intervene, and they come down from the heavens and say, you stupid fools, look, will you cut out this nonsense? Or they may not. I don't know, and we cannot count on it. And so that is the decision that
we're stepping up against.
Now I've made my case.
So our Congress and Senate right now, you're saying our current Congress and Senate may dictate the future and how it plays out.
I think that the senator, history happens, right? And later on, you go back and you look at it and you go, "Whoa,
Whoa,
boy,
yeah,
that was what a
was
decision!"
crazy.
That was unbelievable. What great. But when it's happening, it's hard. It's very hard to see it. It's very hard to realize. Whoa, but we live in a different time, right? Things happen
Absolutely.
fast. History happens fast, and so we literally know right now. At least I know, and I'm happy to share it on the next 1,000 podcasts, that literally very much the fate of our civilization near term in the 21st century, right now, it may change, but right now, literally rests on the shoulders of 3 men.
Oh, God.
Senator Schumer, Senator Warner, and Senator Rubio. Now, the other senators are important. I'm not trying to diminish them. I'm simply saying that these are the men, could be a woman, but that's not the case. These are the men that can call that hearing. The Supreme Court can't make them call that hearing. The president cannot make them call that hearing. No entity can make them call. They can lean on them and they can take them in a room and say, whatever, but actually do it. There is no power in this country that can force that hearing to take place, force those members to sit and listen to that testimony. The people that can do it are Schumer, Rubio, and Warner. And so history literally is on their shoulders right now. And I'm happy to point that out every chance I get. I'm going to try to reach out to them. I'd like to get on some of the big networks and talk about this. They won't bring me on. I've had a couple of very substantial interviews that were canceled at the last minute. It was clear from what I was told that somebody intervened and said, no, he's an idiot, a fool, whatever. Don't bring him on. Okay. But I defy any, I'm not defying. I'm simply saying it rests on their shoulders. That's the way history is going to look at it. They're going to look at this.
They'll bring on Bell any chance they can get. I just don't understand how they pick and choose which people to put up on network TV. Is it just the ones that suit their narrative at this point?
I will simply say this. This is the most general statement I would make.
Like, we need you on Rogan.
This is
that's true. What we need.
I've known this for a long time. I am an activist. There aren't many pure activists in this field. I'm also a Sagittarian. And so consequently, I'm going to say exactly what I intend to say, period. The other people that get on, it's human nature. What they're doing, and this isn't really so much of a criticism, it's just respect for the fact that, hey, getting on these shows is not easy. It's very helpful to your work. And so when you get on the show, you want to frame what you say in such a way that they will ask you back, right? Or if you're being interviewed by the Washington Post, which I was, for a pretty good article by Ashley Parker, and I told her exactly what I needed to tell her. I told her the exact truth, and I came back and followed up with an email, and I haven't heard from her since. In other words, it's logical. You want to be able to be invited back, and so you keep yourself within that area. I won't do that, and they know I won't do that. They brought me on early in the aughts, and I went on and I said things. Why is he saying that?
Modern day Douglas Kehoe.
I'm not going to. Now, am I going to throw shade on the people that go on and couch their terms in such a way they can keep getting back? No. Why? Because I want them to keep getting back. I want people on those shows. And so if everybody went on and pissed off the network or then they'll get invited back. We got nobody doing anything. It's okay. It's okay. And I understand that. I'm not really bitter. And plus, what can I say? I mean, I went through years of this, right? I got bumped off shows. And they would bring me on and because I was getting some press and then I'm not getting called back. But then God looked down on me and said, "Oh, you poor boy, you poor activist. Let me help you. Let me help you." Maybe the ETs did it, right? We're going to help you now. we give to you as a gift from the cosmos the podcast revolution.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The rise of the citizen podcast journalism, which didn't exist at all, right? I mean, the early days was broadcast.com and made some people rich, where they were stations would broadcast and stream.
God,
But
yeah.
the idea of super cheap, high quality cameras and microphones and green screens and all kinds of stuff and streaming, and then the podcast,
Oh my God.
I didn't see it coming, and suddenly there it was. You know how many podcasts now exist? They estimate 4 to 5 million, of which I think something like 700,000 are commercial.
Yeah, and I remember originally what they were saying is like radio hosts like Howard Stern were like, podcast, it's always it's always the gatekeepers of the former technology that will bust the new technology, but really they're just behind and they just want to continue what they're doing.
They've caught up. The
caught up.
podcast revolution is I consider the last nail in the coffin of the truth embargo. I mean, they weathered Mosaic and Netscape. They weathered the bulletin boards and email. Then they weathered the social media. They weathered the Google translation software that allows you to go to any site practically in the world, translate it into English, and see what the hell's going on in Korea, Zimbabwe, whatever the hell. They got through that. They got through the growth of broader spectrum journalism, where you've got quality journalism coming from many. They got through that. They're hanging in there, and then the podcast revolution showed up, and they're going,
yep.
Jesus Christ, are you kidding me?
And now people are like you look at Tucker Carlson, he's doing better on X or Twitter, formerly Twitter, than he was on Fox. And it's clear that mainstream media is not where people are going now.
They're still there. It's
the
all
old timers are,
okay. And mainstream media is already incorporating it. They all got podcasts as well. You're going to have both, right? I mean, a podcast has its limitations.
Yes,
but, Joe Rogan was a podcast. And he got, I don't know, how many $100 million for taking his podcast pro. The message is clear. And so consequently, I got audience. I can talk like this all day long. And so we have a platform. Now, look, not everything that happens on a podcast, well, it doesn't matter. The point is that this is one more communication tool that allows activists to get the message out. In the old days, they had to send out, they had to mimeograph stuff and hand out,
flyers,
right?
Yeah, or literally have a mailing list for like a magazine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy. I do my thing.
I want to ask you both. This because I think you both have a lot of experience in this world. But so you guys have worked towards disclosure, right? So you guys do see a future, 100% where disclosure does happen. Day one, right after disclosure. When do you think we start talking about abductions and maybe the not so great aspects of the non-human stuff, the stuff that maybe we still have trouble with ourselves? When do you think that we end up starting that conversation and having it together as a species after disclosure? Because I don't think it comes before.
It comes up day one.
Day one.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Day one.
Because I think it's a big. I mean, there's clearly connections that we've all seen, right? There's similarities we've all heard, and that's going to be a big question for the public. Is holy shit! You guys just told us that aliens exist. Are they coming into the bedroom? Right? Is that really happening?
I'm going to make you.
That's question number one.
I will make you a prediction. I'm not going to bet on it, but I make you a prediction. It will be asked in the first 10 minutes of the press conference or the press briefing that follows disclosure, whether they hold it that night, the day right after, whether the president makes the mistakes of taking questions. Once he makes that announcement, that would be a mistake. But the first briefing,
okay,
right? It could be at the DOD, it could be at the White House. It comes up in the first 10 minutes. And here's why. If JFK had lived, and was able to pursue, because he was a man of vision, intelligence, and what have you, which is kind of scarce now. We're not getting a lot of
It's
that.
very rare.
When
Yeah.
He envisioned using the, I believe, based on the little bit of evidence we have, it appears that he did consider that the reality of the ET presence, which he knew about, I can assure you, was possibly the way to get over this thing that we have with the Soviet Union and this proliferation of nuclear weapons that was heading to disaster, that it was a way to come together. And he was starting to work with that a little bit. Okay. If he hadn't been assassinated and it actually developed that, and after a couple of years and some back and forth, which would eventually leaked out, that JFK is talking with Khrushchev about the reality of extraterrestrials and how we could address that together, we would have had disclosure in 1964, 1965. And then the press conference following it, contact would not have come up. That was 65. 60 years later, believe me, the idea of abductions and contact is known all around the world. There have been books and movies and documentaries. It's thoroughly discussed. There are people that are coming forward and saying to be contacts, movie stars. Jem Semivan, his CIA career, he's a contactee. And they're people, so the idea that a journalist who knows this, I mean, they read stuff, they know what's going on, so they know that it's in play. They know it is actually an issue, and they're going to be in that room in the day after disclosure, and they're going to be able to ask some questions, and they're going to sit there and go, well, you know, that question could be kind of upsetting, and I think we should hold off on that, maybe wait a couple of weeks. No, they're in there to ask the best, most profound questions so that their paper or their news organization gets massive eyeballs, and they're going to raise their hand and say, in the first 10 minutes, sir, or Jean-Pierre, Ms. Jean-Pierre, I'm sure you know that there's a lot of discussion, a lot of people talking about the fact, or researchers, that the ETs are actually taking people from their cars or their bedrooms and doing things and bringing them back. Is that happening? Answer, yes. She or the spokesperson at the DoD would be making a colossal mistake to commit a bold-faced lie in the face of the current situation in this world and what we know and the ability we have to address bold-faced lies. To do that, she will have to say yes. And the follow-up question, which will either come from that journalist or somebody else, is, why didn't you stop it? And
or
the question is, again, these are the kinds of public relations problems they're going to have post-disclosure, which is one of the reasons they're going through all this falderall right now. The answer to that question is, there's nothing we could do about it.
Right. And that's not a bad thing to say. If it's
no,
true.
it's the truth. It's the truth. That's why you got to say it. It's the damn truth. Now, when I say that, let me point out something. There is some things we could do about it in a way. In other words, contactees have a very limited range of options to deal with what's happening to them. They tie themselves to the bed, they put a camera up in the room, right, to film it, and then the ETs turn the camera off, whatever. But if in a fully disclosed world, when you factor in government and other non-government institutions, the number of things that could be done to really complicate the abduction phenomena is non-trivial. Ultimately stop it? No. The ETs want to take it, they're going to take it, but we could really make it tough. We could make it awkward. And so, and they won't go into this in the press conference, but it'll come up in due course that,
I mean, they'll be like,
after disclosure, I think all abductions stop very quickly worldwide. Stop.
Interesting.
I
definitely think there would be a market, like a snake oil market, where, like, you know, there are people who do the like doomsday prepping. They'll be like, all of a sudden they'll be selling like alien like alien sigils to put on the window, so they
alien bear spray. You know,
yeah,
spray them with this. You know?
yeah.
again,
Yep. Alex Jones will be all over it.
Well, for years now, you could get abduction insurance, which has yet to pay off. No, this is non-trivial. Now, there are going to be some contactees that are going to be distressed as hell.
Yes, I know quite a few of them.
They're going to be.
Well, isn't this what makes it such a political nuke in the first place? I mean, this can be played both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing to help us, and you knew.
We're not the only nation that will have to say that, though. Every nation is going to have to answer the question the same way.
Right.
And so, but again, the prospect of disclosure ending all involuntary contact with ETs by citizens of any nation, this is a non-trivial thing. I think it ends. And so, I mean, obviously, this is totally up to the ETs, but it's one more piece of weight on the scale favoring disclosure, right? Because if it has the possibility of ending abduction, then good. That's a good thing. And so, again, these are just post-disclosure. That will happen in 2 years. John has indicated he's gotten some after open contact. I can't imagine that abduction continues. And so, again, I can't prove these things, right? But these are legitimate factors. But the thing is that I guarantee you that abduction will be one of the earliest questions asked by reporters in any briefing room. I don't care where they are, National Academy of Sciences, over at NASA, DOD, White House. Is abduction happening? Answer, yes. Can you do anything about it? No.
No. I asked Burchett. I mean, we asked Burchett outright. One of the other things I did want to talk about is, so it sounds like through the grapevine, what we're hearing is people like Mike Turner are kind of throwing cash towards people to oppose people, like say Tim Burchett. Is this truth? Is that, are you guys hearing that as well? Because that's something that I find very, very frightening.
I'm not frightened. I have heard some of this. I haven't read it in a high level publication, or maybe I actually did and forgot. I'm going to say it's very possible. Let's assume it's true. All right. So Turner is turning on Burchett. There's only one reason he's doing that. It's because Burchett is going on and News Nation and Fox News and saying there's extraterrestrials here.
Yes.
And Turner views that because he is heavily funded by national security stuff. In other words, he's getting money from people that support national security or their defense contractors. They're certainly very much oriented toward that zone. He's getting money, and Burchett is clearly stepping into his yard there. All right, and so and he's been extremely vocal, and so he might be doing that. That is not going to work well. Let me tell you why. First of all, Tim Burchett was the first member of Congress to ever say there's an extraterrestrial presence in front of a camera. It's never happened.
TMZ, yeah.
Stephen Schiff didn't do it. Hillary Clinton didn't do it. There's a couple of senators that have been involved in it. They didn't do it. He was the first person. He made history.
He did.
When you see the News Nation or Fox. Then he kept saying it over and over again. Right?
You know what's crazy to me is like 20 years ago, that would have been all that we needed.
No.
Well, maybe not, because there have been other congressmen who have come out. Maybe
no congressperson has ever said that. But Edgar Mitchell did. He did it.
I was gonna say other high level people.
2009, nothing happened. Yeah. Gary Nolan went on Fox News and said there's extraterrestrial presence here. Robert Bigelow went on 60 Minutes, said there's an extraterrestrial presence here, and it helped. Believe me, I'm happy about it.
Is that why you think that it has to be the president? Because clearly other people have said it in high level. Like David Grush essentially disclosed. I mean, that was, for me, that was all I personally needed.
Well, that's
but
fine.
For the general public, I understand that they're still like, it's just
it's not just the general public, Tyler. It's the nature of government and the nature of our world. Look, there have been instances in our country where all kinds of people are running around saying we need to go to war with somebody. pick a country. I don't know what it was. It's like, we got to go to war with it. Got to go to war, right? And they say, we must go to war. Why not we just go to war? No matter who they are. Could be a general. General come out, so we need to go to war. Something. Because only the Congress can declare war. Period. If the Congress doesn't declare war, we're not going to war. I don't care how many people stand up and say that. Right? And then, of course, the executive branch carries it out. And so the fact that there are people saying we have ETs here, the fact that people saying that we need to acknowledge it, etc., isn't enough. In order to open the doors that have to be opened, the president must do it. And it is a national security matter, and it's absolutely the president's prerogative to do that, right? Because what it is an act of declassification. And the president does have the power to declassify anything, though there is a way that it's done. But the president is the one person in this country that has the power to declassify anything, all right? Which some presidents don't handle as well as others.
Yes.
And so what happens when the president discloses? He is declassifying that truth, that fact, ultimately in a formal way. And what happens then, and this is my current metaphor of choice, I have a lot of metaphors, I love metaphors, is this. I have an apartment, I live in LA, I live in an apartment complex with about 200-300 units. There are some maintenance people there that have a master key to every single one. They could come in anytime they want.
Right.
And flagrantly catch me overeating. I'm going nuts for Tate's cookies right now, and it's becoming a serious problem. But they don't. But they could. Disclosure is unlike what Bigelow and Edgar Mitchell or Gary Nolan or Tim Burchett are saying. Disclosure is a key, an actual key, formal key that opens up 1,000 doors. There's 1,000 doors out there that we need to get through to see what's on the other side in order to fix all the crap that we've created here, right? In other words, the answers, the possibilities, the routes are on the other side. We've been kicking on those doors. We've been beating on them with our fist. We can't get through. Disclosure is master.
Is disclosure our new energy, Steve? Is that our new sustainable energy source? Is that really what?
It is a long list, Teresa, of countless things. There's 1,000 doors. And so it opens every one. And we're not obligated to go one at a time. They'll open all at once, right? Boom. And we go through those doors. And suddenly we're learning things and considering things we couldn't before. And so it's like Alice in Wonderland going through the, whatever. It is
totally through the looking glass.
Metaphor. So pick anything. Energy, anti-gravitics. Well, first of all, genetics, learning about this issue by dealing directly with contactees, doing full compilations of their reports, all right? Reconsidering all geopolitics in the light of the fact that we're not alone, right? Reconsidering all the environmental issues in the post-disclosure world. Example, here is behind one of those doors. Unlock the door, you go through. Anti-gravitics, yeah, we got them. Okay, you got it. You can go up there and just, without rockets. Yeah, we got that. Well, I'll tell you what. There's a company that makes these huge panels, right? That company could make panels that you could use your anti-gravitics to go up and put in sun synchronous orbit to the planet. What the hell is that? Well, sun synchronous orbit is kind of like, the stationary orbits that satellites have.
Right.
They're simple because the Earth is round. And so you just have to have the right speed and it just stays there. The sun, the orbit of the sun is not round, it's elliptical. And so the position of the planet kind of changes, right? Mm-hmm. And so you put up a huge array of panels that can move. And those panels move so they are always oriented between the Earth and the sun as it goes through its full elliptical pattern. And, okay, fine. You got panels. What are you going to do with the panels? Very simple. They're movable, right? And so this giant array of panels can be moved so that it blocks out a certain percentage of the sun's energy from the earth. Could be 0.5%. Who knows? It may not be much at all. But by doing that, they reduce the amount of energy coming in. Global warming solved. Global warming solved.
Huh.
And if necessary, if we end up going through a cooling era, right, at the beginning of an ice age, which would be bad, glaciers over New York, terrible for tourism. All right.
Very bad for tourism.
We reorient the panels so they reflect an additional 0.5 or 1% of energy. And so anti-gravitics, which lies behind that door, allows us to solve the global warming problem for a tiny fraction of the cost that we're spending now to deal with it in a nearly hopeless effort and driving ourselves crazy politically and emotionally and everything else. Solves the problem. That's one door. And so the answer to Teresa's question is that there is a countless number of things, and that is one door. Behind another door may be an energy paradigm. And if that is happening, that's equally as profound as temperature controlling the planet for like a few bucks, right?
Right.
If there's an energy paradigm shift and it's behind that door, it changes the world. Now, it depends on how big a shift it is. If it is capable of generating non-polluting energy at maybe 1 cent on the dollar, it's unbelievably transforming. If it's capable of generating at 40 cents on the dollar, that's pretty good. If it's just non-polluting, but cost as much, we'll take it, right? So that is possibly there. And you just go down the line, door by door by door. All of those doors open. Enough doors to keep the human race busy for at least a full lifespan, 75 years. In which case, so that's and the only thing standing between us and being able to open those doors right now is a hearing in front of the Senate and a simple statement from the President of the United States. I mean, when you put it that way, it's like, what?
It gets very, very simple, very quickly.
What is the barrier? What are the problems? No. It's just do the damn hearings. The president announces the ET disclosure and we move forward. And all of the arguments for, oh, it could go bad and it won't work out and people get upset and all that other crap. And I'm going, what do you think nuclear war is going to upset people?
Yeah. Right? Well, they won't have a chance to be.
Yeah. You think when the oceans are completely polluted and that you can walk from California to Japan without getting wet and people are dying because there's no fish, you think that's going to upset people? So look.
Or melting off the rock that we live on. That would be bad. Yeah, there's so many ways that it could go bad.
Yes, Teresa.
So we're gonna get, if I'm understanding what you're saying, we're going to get all of the technology that will be required to go interstellar, which will be like Star Trek type of stuff. Like
we're going to get it even if we don't get disclosure, because the public sector is closing in on that physics. Now, we may need the government's help to build the Starship, but maybe not, right? You know, I'm sure Elon Musk would be happy to build a Starship with the ET technology that he says isn't there, and do his
blows
thing.
My mind that he takes that position.
He knows there's an ET presence, I guarantee it, right? But Elon, he has SpaceX. And if he were to say there's an ET presence, the first question would be, then why in the hell are you building these rockets? And his SpaceX program becomes irrelevant, and that's no fun, right? So, but when you are the richest man in the world, not just rich, you are the richest man in the world. I mean, it varies. He is, whatever. The point is, if you at any time are the richest man in the world, the idea that nobody is going to tip you off if there's an ET presence is ridiculous, right? Some retired admiral will call you up in the middle of the night, or somebody that just wants to get to know you. Hey, look, they're all tipped off.
I think he's too much. I think he's in bed with the government in certain areas, specifically aerospace, and that is going to keep him from talking. And well, there's people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who may not have been tipped off, or I think have been. They are the ones who I think are ignorant about it.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, and his connections in the scientific world, and his talking about this issue, you don't think that somebody that he absolutely respects and trusts hasn't taken him aside? They all know. They all know this issue is again.
It's like everybody's in the closet about it.
What now?
Everyone's in the closet about it. Everyone knows it's there. Everyone's, will have, if they're sit down and they're 2 beers in, they'll be like, yeah, I know. There's clearly no way we're not, that we're alone in the universe. Everyone, it's like we all fundamentally agree on that. It's just something's keeping us from having the conversation as a species. And I think that's the hurdle that we're facing.
The truth embargo is keeping us. That's the truth embargo, this policy that is led by the United States in the democratic world, and cooperated with, not cooperated with, but
co-opted.
Co-opted by in the dictatorship world, because they don't want anything to do with that. They want to keep that, and so we managed to keep it there. And again, the amazing thing that I still marvel at is that technically the policy of the U.S. government is still that it's not. It's not, well, I mean, recently it sort of is out, but I mean, overall, up until just a few months ago, the policy of the government, no, there's no there when huge swaths of the entire human race know there is, and they get away with it. And this is a lesson, okay, that we will learn. Hopefully this will be one of those doors we go through post-disclosure. On the other side of that door is a rethinking of leadership. And here's what I mean, okay? At any given time on this planet, in the 200 nations and sovereign territories, a certain number of the leaders of those nations or territories are either mentally ill, seriously evil, unbelievably narcissistic, extremely dangerous, and a few other things. One, more, or all of them. X number. It's not a big number. Might be 25. So these 25 leaders are outnumbered on this planet, right? Hundreds of millions to one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right? Well, let's see. We have 8 billion planets. So 100 million people there's 8 billion people, so that's 1,000 100 millions. Yes, 1,000 100. No, it's 1,000. So they're outnumbered 100 million to one, and yet they're still running the countries.
And we allow them.
They're young men off to war, blowing them to hell, blowing up other countries, committing all kinds of unbelievable, awful stuff, and they're outnumbered 100 billion to one. And so the rethink goes like this: post-disclosure. After you go through that door, this will be a think tank thing. I mean, I'm sure that all the think tanks are going to dabble in this. I'll write something that people will ignore, but whatever. Is this? Let's all agree, as 200 nations and 800 billion people, that we're just never going to let one of those people run anything, run a country. And we're going to see them coming. We're going to pick them off, and we'll do what we have to do. That they never get into office. They never get into the palace. They simply don't get to run a nation. And frankly, they probably should be in prison. We just agree to do that. And so as they come along and you see them coming, you go, boom, gotcha. Now, in where it's most problematic is in governments or nations where people ascend by right of birth. Now, this has been the standard in human world for a long time. In other words, you got kings and you got bloodlines and stuff. Like a lot of that, right? You got these bloodlines, right? Monarchs, kings, whatever. And of course, that's tough because once you bought into that, well, the Pharaoh's son takes over. Now, the Pharaoh's son is clearly out of his mind, but he is, And I'm saying now we can deal with that too. And Britain has dealt with it. They have a bloodline that's part of their government, but it is essentially token. King Charles is a token leader. So on the other side of this door, we make this decision that lunatics, fools, assholes, evil people, utterly destructive, would have terrible childhoods and other problems, will not become heads of state. You will simply not allow it.
Right.
Now, I don't know all the details of how this is going to come about. I just know we have numbers on our side, right? And so whatever it takes, if it takes an empowered UN that has the ability to pass a vote that says that such and such a leader is completely unfit to govern, takes whatever measure it takes for that person to be gone, then that's what you do. And people say, well, no. We be violating their rights? No, right? If a lunatic is running a country, they don't have any rights. So this can you just understand how that simple change in perspective and decision on the part of nations eliminates so much of the awfulness? Because if you look at the 20th century, it is one narcissistic lunatic after another getting power and with the help of others and taking their nation to destruction. It's happened over and over again. And so let's stop that.
Yeah. And it's funny. So I'm Teresa does have to go, and it's funny because her and I have been talking about this a lot lately, and learning from our past and how we are very bad at doing so. It's like we can't remove ourselves and take a step back and look at the whole picture. We have a very hard time doing so.
And I like to say it simply, we can't fix things, right?
Yeah. So Teresa, I'm gonna give you a jump off point here. Thank you so much for joining us, and you've been absolutely amazing as always.
I appreciate you having me, and Steve, I agree. No assholes for president. I can get on board with that.
More asshole presidents, right?
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, we have to be careful here. Just because you don't like a leader doesn't mean, oh no, they got to go. I mean, they've got to be clearly and obviously
incompetent.
Okay, I mean, it has to be very clear. If we can just eliminate the worst case scenarios, things could get a lot better.
I absolutely agree.
I'm not being political there. Bye,
yeah, she left a little comment for you and said that she loves you and that she'll see you soon.
Yeah.
And so before we go any further, I want to ask you a question. A lot of people are saying, behind the scenes, that it's the same thing every year. Always around this time, people say disclosure is going to happen. It's always right around now, before the presidency or before the election starts, before the election season starts. I just want to reiterate, what makes this right now different than 5 years ago in 2017 when that article dropped, because that was a watershed moment for the world as well. So what's to say that this is different?
Well, that event, which was triggered by the people coming forward 2 months earlier with the To the Stars Academy, those 10 individuals who essentially put their gravitas and their reputation and so forth out front and on the line, meaning we clearly are supporting getting this out and whatever, and in the context of this company that was formed, that's fine, whatever. I understand why they did it that way. It doesn't matter. The point is they came forward, and a lot of people knew instantly that meant that the consensus, that there is a growing consensus within the military intelligence community that this truth embargo needs to end. There's plenty of support within. That doesn't mean that they're going to do anything about it, but at least not while working for the government.
Right.
These 10 people said, well, we're basically no longer under salary. They might have contracts, but we're going to come forward, even if we lose our contracts. And so that's when it begins. And so what's happening now is the result of what that triggered. And it triggered a lot.
That was the first domino.
But ultimately, it's a simpler metaphor. And if you're an activist, right, I like this metaphor for people trying to understand me, right? Not that they need to understand me, but some try. The eternal optimist constantly saying disclosure is going to happen, disclosure is going to happen. Well, I think they growl and whatever. I don't mind. It's simple. Think of it this way. You're a father, and your 13-year-old son who's had problems in life,
Mm-hmm.
and even has some physical issues, but you love him, and he's your son, and he decides to run a marathon. All right, fine, and you're supportive. Okay, and you got to train, you got to do this, you got to do that, and finally the day comes to run this marathon, 26.2 miles, and it's not going to be easy, right? It's going to be very hard for your son to do this. Okay, you see how I'm trying to make this example relevant?
Yes.
And so the marathon begins, and you are running with him because you are in good shape too. So you're running with your son. And one of the reasons you're running with him, as opposed to just going off and running ahead and doing whatever you want to do, is because you want to help him finish.
Right. Hype. Be
Now,
there to support.
do you think it's going to help if the father of this boy is constantly telling him as they go going down that 26 miles, you know, I'll tell you, I love the fact you're trying this, son, but you know, I don't think you're going to make it.
Right.
I don't think you're going to be able to finish this marathon. I mean, you got this problem, you got that problem. You're probably, you're probably not going to make it, right? No, that's not what the dad's going to do. The dad's going to say, son, you can make this. You're going to finish this race, okay? And when it starts getting tough, the father will come in and say, look, okay, this is, I see the problem here, right? I understand. Slow down a little bit, but you're going to finish. You're going to finish. You're going to finish. That's what activists have to do, because that race is 26.2 miles. The major activist movements of the 20th century lasted 70, 80, 90, 100 years. Whereas the people who started the movement never lived to see the end of it. Mm-hmm. And so you have to keep people convinced that you will finish that race and get the prize. When I did the Ironman triathlon, I barely made it in time. I had to get in there by midnight. I got there at 11:30. I had problems along the way, but I got there and I got my medal, and it hangs in my office right now. Nobody was telling me, Steve, you can't make it. You can't make it. I was worried I might not, but always I was going to finish that race. And so that's what activists do. Now, this race has been underway for 76 years, but the activist movement has really only been underway for about 25 years. It doesn't really become kind of an activist movement. Maybe the symbol of that was when Operation Right to Know held the very first protest in front of the White House with some signs. They didn't have a lot of people show up because that's not the way this works in this issue. But
yeah,
signs and a couple of people. Ted Cormack is still alive, but a couple of the people that were involved in that have passed. But it's really only 25 years, about the time that I got in, 1996. So it's not 75 years. In fact, it's about 26 years, which is interesting because a marathon is 26 miles.
26 miles.
So that's why I came up with this idea. And so where we are now is that father and son are approaching the finish line. And the reason they know it's about to end is because they can see the finish line.
Right.
When I finished the Ironman triathlon in the middle of the night, it wasn't until I got on the outskirts of Kailua Kona, still a couple of miles from the finish line, that I could see the lights of the finish line, because it was dark and they had the lights.
Right. So it's like a very bright area.
I knew, okay. I also knew it was going to be difficult. So the reason that things have changed is that we can now see the finish line without question. And does that mean that as the father and son approach the finish line, with the father rooting him on and the kid struggling, but he knows he's going to make it, that some idiot could run out of the spectators and tackle them both?
Right. Break their leg.
Of course not. Does that mean that he needs to remind the son that at any moment somebody could tackle you? You'll never fit? No. You just keep going until you get there. That's how activism works. And so there are things that could, as I told you, there are a number of events that could happen in the world that would shove all of this completely off the table, right? But barring that, we are going to finish this marathon. We will get disclosure, and it is very close at hand, totally in reach. And for the reasons I've stated, it needs to happen. That's the answer to your question. That's the nature of why I do what I do and the way I do it that way. I know how activism works. I've studied the activism of successful movements, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the black rights movement with Martin Luther King, and even the women's rights, those movements, they took, like you said, lifetimes. You know, some people that started it didn't end up seeing the finish. So there are people. It's a weird notion to think about, but it's like you and I are that father and son racing, because I'm part of that newer generation, and you're the generation that started it. It's up to us, like you said earlier, to pick up that baton and to carry it past that finish line.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's harder for the newer generation, like Gen Zs particularly, and some millennials, because they don't really know the history of it. So it's, but look, I'm a baby boomer, and it's the baby boomers that started the truth embargo. Okay. They're the ones, well, let me put it this way. That's not quite true. It was the greatest generation that started the truth embargo. These are the men and women that defeated the Nazis, World War II, and then also the Korean War. These are the ones that did that. That's the greatest generation. And they're the ones that made the decision to begin the truth embargo. It was the baby boomers, me, as we grew up, that decided to go along with it, right? And service it, maintain it, right? And so baby boomers have been the principal maintainers of the truth embargo. So why not? It seems not unreasonable that the baby boomer generation, my generation, are critical and very much participating in ending it. We help maintain the damn thing. The people that started it are all dead, so they're out of the question. But we help maintain it, right? Generals and admirals and CIA people and politicians and on and on and on and on, and the guys that ran the DIA and the CIA and the Air Force and all that kind of crap. They maintain this truth embargo. So that generation and Generation X are the ones that are predominant in the activist movement and are going to end it. And that's fair. But anybody else that wants to join in, fantastic. And they are. And so this child that has been running this race for 26 miles, which kind of marries up to the 26 years since the activist movement began, this child is really fortunate because he has 10,000 fathers, 50,000 fathers, 100,000 fathers running alongside, saying, you can finish this. You can finish this. We're going to help you finish this. And that's how it is. Right? That's how it is right now. Here's my close. One of the great things about this particular metaphor of the marathon is that I came in near the last. I think there was only 3 people that finished after me, maybe 5, 6, 7. Because I had problems on the race. I could have maybe finished hours earlier, but I had problems. So I ended up barely getting done. The professional triathletes, they got done. I think they finished the damn race in, what is it, about, I don't know. 2 hours, 3 hours. 8 hours, 9 hours, something like that. I mean, it's just unbelievable, right? So when you look at the results of the Ironman 1992, you got this huge long line of 1,000 people. Right. And they got the times, right, from the winners, men's, women. Okay. And that's the way it works. That way races work. Yeah. The race that we're in is different. Right. The finish line is disclosure. That's the finish line. Until we get disclosure, we ain't finished this race. And when disclosure comes, every single person in this planet, all 800 billion, cross the finish line together at the same time. Nobody's first, nobody's last. Everybody crosses the finish line at the same time. I like that metaphor because it's true. Right. Now, maybe you didn't know you crossed the finish line because you've been involved somewhere, you had no idea what the hell's going on. You're working on in the Antarctic on something, and then you find out later. The point is, you crossed it. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so that's
came
what's
for that
about
ride, baby.
my kind of race, man. Everybody
and-
gets a medal. Everybody gets a certificate of disclosure.
Certificate. That would be so epic. And I want to talk about one last thing. You guys have started something called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and me, coming from that arena before this, something I'm very interested in hearing about, learning about, maybe getting involved in. I still maintain lots of connections with networks and actors, and I just want to hear about the vision for what you guys are trying to do, because this is something that is not it's not like it's congruent to disclosure. It's parallel. It's going to help, and it's going to run alongside it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've talked about the shift storm earlier, and I think I did, right? We talked about the shift storm, didn't we, earlier on, about getting the messages into the senators to disclose?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know we mentioned it.
All right, let me. That's right. I said I'd talk. Okay, I got to talk about two things here. We're going to finish up with this. We're going to talk about the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and the shift storm. Okay, the shift storm is about disclosure. Okay, and it is. I've launched this activist maneuver to service what we've been talking about, and to get Senator Schumer, Warner, and Rubio to do the right thing and call the hearings in January. And again, these are the good guys. They want disclosure. They're on our side. But they're the ones that are calling the shots on that. And so you can find the Shift Storm, don't forget the F, at shiftstorm.org. That's where it is. It's also linked on my main website as well.
Yes.
And what you find there is a simple activist plan. It's not complicated. And it goes like this. Anybody in the world that's on Twitter or can use email, we want them to join up, and we want to send 100,000 tagged Twitter messages into the Twitter notification box of all three of these fine gentlemen. That would be 300,000 messages. And it's extremely easy if you know Twitter. All you do, and on the website, shiftstorm.org, I have shown these three gentlemen and their three handles. They're seeing Twitter handles. Every member of Congress has a Twitter account except for a couple, and they have handles. At Senator Schumer, at whatever, right? At Marco Rubio, and so what you do is you send a message with a tag. And so you go on Twitter, you're going to put a tweet up, and you go at Senator Schumer, or whatever the handle is. We really appreciate all the legislation that you've passed. Fantastic job. But now we need to have the hearings in the Senate Intel Committee. We need to have the witnesses testify. They're ready to testify. That testimony is going to change the world. We must have it as soon as possible in January before the election, whatever. However you want to phrase it. All right, 100,000. And you go at, and it goes right into the notification box. Every one of the members of Congress has a staffer that checks their Twitter notification box. They may not scan the feed because
right.
members are the ones that post on their feed. And so they sort of, but they need to scan that, because that is how they learn what people out in the world are saying about their boss. Okay.
Right.
And so as soon as they see thousands of messages pouring in about we want hearings in January, they're going to call the boss or the chief of staff and say, you need to check this. Even if they're home. I mean, they're about to go home. So for the last 2 weeks of December, they're going to be back home. That don't matter. The staff is still in Washington, and they're seeing all these messages coming. They're going to call them up at home and say, look, you need to check this out. And so they'll open up Twitter. They'll go to the notifications, and they'll see the streaming list of messages saying we want hearings in January.
Absolutely.
Check. Okay. Now, the other thing, that's why it's not just a tweet storm. That is actually a tweet storm, but it's a tweet plus storm. I've posted the the email forms for them as well. You can't, members of Congress do not give out email addresses anymore. I don't know if anybody does, but they have forms. So you fill out the form and you say your message, you put out email, whatever, and you click it, and it goes in as an email to their staff.
Correct.
So they have an email box, right? And there's a staff that checks that. And so I'm asking 100,000 emails into the email box of all three of these senators by the end of the year. 100,000. Okay.
And I really want to add to that, like to everyone listening, please don't just say to yourself, I'm going to do this. I'll do it tomorrow. No, right after the show ends, go to his website, which is linked in the description.
Shiftstorm.org. Yes.
Yes. And get it done. Just get it done. And
look, it's okay to send multiple messages. Just do not send the same message over and over again to the same member. You can send the same message to each. In other words, you could come up with 5 different messages, and you could send each of those 5 to each of those members. But don't send the same message to the same member. That's called boilerplate. You don't want that. So you could send a lot of messages. They don't know the difference. And same thing with emails. Okay. So this is the fundamental plan. It's that simple. All right. And you can do that. Now, I'm not suggesting people storm them with phone calls. No, don't do that. If a couple people are, if you want to make a phone call, do it, but don't make many, and don't encourage others. I mean, the odd phone call is okay. But if you bury them in phone calls, it really irritates them. It interrupts their business, and it's not constructive. And we don't need to do it. Emails and tagged tweets, perfect.
Right.
All right. And so that is the tweet storm. Now, there's one other thing, and this is not part of the shift storm, but I also posted on that site the contact information, including a phone. Because I don't post the phone numbers. Somebody wants a phone call, but I have to go find the senator's website. But
right,
3 heroes that I think are the chief heroes in the House side of this, which is Congressman Burchett, Congressman Anna Paulina Luna, and Congresswoman Nancy Mace. And I'm suggesting don't storm them, but if you feel like it, send them a nice thank you. Send them an appreciation. Tag a Twitter appreciation to them. Send a nice email saying we really appreciate what you're doing in the House. Thank you for that hearing, and so forth. And just give them some praise, give them some love. Keeping in mind
that they're on the right path.
But don't bury them. I mean, you don't need to. They can't make the decision. They're not the ones that can make the decision about the Senate hearing. Burchett says he's going to have another hearing. God bless him. He probably will. But that hearing is not what's going to trigger disclosure. It's got to be the Senate Intel Committee. And so don't you just send them a few. If a few of you send thank you, they will be very appreciative. Plus, I'm publicizing that they're the heroes. Okay. Yes. Now there are other heroes, but these are the 6. Well, let me put it this way: every member of the Senate Intel Committee is definitely a hero. But because they've all signed on letters about this that they sent out, I think, to the White House and Arrow. So they're definitely heroes. And then the House started emerging with some people doing some good things like Andre Carson and Gallego and so forth. Mm-hmm. But not quite like this group. They seized the Grush situation, set up a hearing, and got him in. And it was just 12 days after passed his amendment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it was pretty quick how from when Grush came out to the hearing. I mean, it was rather a quick situation, and I was pretty impressed with Burchett, Luna, Gates, all of them, for the ability. And it was like we were finally on that roll. Like it seemed like Congress and the people who have been vocal about this, we were finally like hand in hand. And it seems like I guess with the Schumer amendment. Or Schumer Rounds amendment, because we can't forget Mike Rounds.
Mike Rounds, that's right.
I guess it feels just like a body blow to the UFO community. It just feels like that relationship kind of got it a little pushback, and I think we expected it. What do we think, that they were going to turn all this over? Yeah, okay,
Sure.
you guys finally want it. All right, here you go.
You're going to go out to
No, it
win a
was always
Super
gonna be
Bowl
a
and you
fight.
expect that you're not going to get resistance at the goal line? I mean, come on.
Right.
So, and by the way, let me point out that Burchett was the first member of Congress to ever say matter of factly there's an ET presence here. But the hearing that he put together with Comer and Gates and Luna and Mace, all that was the first hearing since 1968 in 55 years. The other things that happened on the Hill were not hearings, they were briefings.
Briefings, yes.
Okay, nobody took an oath. These are reports, not the same thing. This
Correct.
was the first hearing in 55 years. So Burchett made history twice. Okay, and so we have support in the House. It's not enough to have changed the bill, and that's not surprising. Okay, I mean to keep the bill intact. No. But the point is that I assure you, there are plenty of people ready to line up behind these three people, Burchett and the others. There are plenty of people ready to, when it's safer. Okay,
It's safer,
and so when disclosure takes place, you're going to have a whole bunch of people in the House of Representatives coming forward and saying, "Oh yeah, we're on board with this, and we're going to work with this, and we're going to deal with this, and this is important." And what does that mean? It means that if the UAP Disclosure Act, as originally written, is resubmitted as a standalone bill after disclosure, I think it passes right through the House, with the possibility of eminent domain being removed. But I don't think that'll happen. I think they might modify it a little bit to not be too harsh, but I think it pretty much passes intact. Who is going to vote against it in the post-disclosure world, where the entire world knows there's ETs here, and you're trying to have a bill that gets everything out? And they go, well, no. So, but not totally get it out. So I think it passes. And that could be a week later. And so we're not really losing much ground, because this bill was stalled this time. And because the hearings couldn't happen until January anyway. And so the hearings happen. Biden confirms. Within a week, they could reintroduce that bill and probably get it passed, in which case we're fine. It's not really going to slow down the disclosure process.
Back on track. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So all right. So we're coming out of this with a somewhat positive outlook. So the essence of the bill is there. It sets a precedence in history. This year, 2023, has been quite the ride. With guys like Congressman Burchett and Anna Paula Luna.
Yeah. Let's get that right. Yeah. She has the coolest name in all of Congress. I'm just saying that. Okay. Nobody should even attempt to outcool that name. It's the best.
Absolutely. Well, there is one person, and that's AOC. But I mean, like this year, we literally got a hearing where there was AOC and Matt Gaetz and then David Grush telling them all about non-human intelligence, and they were agreeing.
Well, they were off to the left. I mean, they were way off to the left. They did ask some intelligent questions, but they're not cheerleading it. They have
no, they're not. They're not cheerleading it.
One of the things about the progressives and the left in politics and in Congress is they're people with passion for issues, and they want to help, and they're good people. Okay, great. And so there's all these things that they want to help with. They want to change this. They want to reform. God bless them. I think that's great. But the ET issue is so tainted, and it has been tainted for a long time. The truth embargo ensured that some of the more progressive politicians, they see the ET issue, if they touch it, as harming their ability to do good elsewhere. Right? I got good stuff I'm doing here. I'm trying to help people. Right. This is going to cause me a problem. And they have been much more reluctant to engage this issue than the Republicans. Stephen Schiff was a Republican. Okay. Tucker Carlson, Republican. Mace, all Republicans. And there's a few others. some action on the left, but not much. And it's not. And I'm saying the reason is not because they're stupid, not because they're stubborn skeptics, but because of the nature of how they think in their worldview. They want to reform. They have issues that they take to their heart, and the ET issue for them threatens their ability to do that work. I respect that. They'll come around. I mean, there's no question they'll come around. But one of the things that the movement and the people in this field have done is to try to show why it's in the best interest of the human race to get this done, which plays into there, like the energy issue. I assure you, the progressive left would love to see fossil fuel cheap energy. Believe me. Okay.
Trust me. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so at the point that they realize, oh my God, disclosure could lead to that, they'll be on board. I'm not worried about them. The right, we have got the conservatives.
Yeah.
So, and so again, are we near the finish line? Hell yeah. Right. But the world is a dangerous place. And so if I'm that father and I'm determined to see that my son makes it to that finish line, I have to protect him in that sense from something happening, stepping in a pothole, being tackled by a lunatic, right? And get him across the line. Well, that's what the activists and the other people are trying to do. We're trying to get this done. We're trying to prevent it. But I unlike that dad, I can't stop China invading Taiwan. I can't stop somebody using a nuke in Ukraine. We don't have that ability. We do have the ability to get it done before that happens, to get it done and get in the post-disclosure world. That we can do. I still think we have time. I mean, I'm not saying that a nuke event's going to happen in the next 20 days. Generally, that's, Christmas time is when you put aside your desires to use nukes. Because of the holidays. So. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but then starting January, as we head into this
back on, baby,
grotesque political year, everybody's uptight, everybody's angry, everybody's pissed. Because
that Christmas bill comes due.
Yeah. The credit card bills. No, I'm just saying that it can't happen too soon. After the first of the year, we got to get it done. Okay. Tyler, it's been great. Get in touch.
You've been absolutely amazing. And I think, like I said, we everyone, after you hear these words, and they're all linked below in the description. After we wrap this conversation up, go over, tag the congressman, send the emails over, play your part, and let's help get this reintroduced and show your representative from your state that you want this bill.
Well, no, not Tyler. No. We're not asking to go to their representatives, right?
Well,
I mean, you can do that, but
go to your representative.
We don't want that. No. We want to focus. Got to focus, right? We want people to use their time specifically to target just Senator Schumer, Senator Warner, Senator Rubio, the three men, as it happens, men who have the power to call that hearing.
Okay, so
the rest of the Congress, let's just leave them alone for right now. We just need the hearing, so let's focus it all on those, and it's all there. So go to ShiftStorm, don't forget the F.org. It's all there. Do your thing. Let's go viral. And by the way, and I'm not on TikTok. I probably should be. But I don't know. I just don't feel like a TikTok person. But I may have to rethink that. If any of you happen to know a TikTok influencer personally, one of those nice teenagers that has 12 million followers, send them the link to ShiftStorm and say that wouldn't it be cool if you mentioned this? Because we live in an age now where a 15-year-old TikTok influencer can change the world.
Isn't that
what can I
crazy?
say? I'm just living in that world,
Isn't that crazy? But yeah, it's
true.
It's true. So no, absolutely. And I think there is a couple people that I might send this to. So actually I will. But like you said,
wait a minute. Well, Tyler, we have one more thing very quickly. Yep. We forgot about the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.
We did.
Very quick. Here it is. It's formed in November 1. Website, HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. The whole purpose of this nonprofit 501c3 is to make it easier and easier and easier. This is a post-disclosure project. It's not about disclosure. Post-disclosure for the film industry, entertainment industry professionals to come forward and acknowledge, hey, I like this, I'm on board. And then the UAP-ET people are on board. They're all part of the founding member structure so that they can see each other and connect and make deals. HDA is not in those deals. It's not making money. It's going to raise money through donations, but we're going to make it easier for these two worlds to come together,
Facilitate.
to make the content of the post-disclosure world and make money, right? Because without money, you can't do stuff. And so by helping the entertainment professionals identify and openly acknowledge, hey, I'm down with this, whether they be directors, writers, producers, production people, actors, it doesn't matter, right? We have all of that. And soon we'll have a lot more. That's what the HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org is doing. The website's still in development, but it's underway. And we're particularly looking for people because we need balance here. I've got UAP people lined up. We particularly need people who have time and grade in the entertainment industry. Clearly, you know, they're professional. They've been doing this. Who would like to be a founding member? Costs nothing. We need more of the film industry, entertainment industry founding members, so I can bring in more UAP members. We've got 25 right now. I need to get it to at least 50, hopefully. So if you know somebody that you think fits the bill, tell them. If you already fit the bill, get in touch with me. The contact information is on all my websites, and we'll talk about getting you in as a founding member. That's it. That's Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Now you can go. You can go now, Tyler.
No. I'll sit here with you for hours, man. You know
no, it's okay. Your dog needs to take a walk. Your dog has been wanting to walk for some time. It's time to get
Yeah. But I do want to say this. I think what you're doing with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, it's piqued my interest, and it's something that I think I find it'd be something I'm very passionate about, or would be very passionate about. So I'd love to talk with you.
You can be a founding member. Absolutely.
I would love to be.
I'm not sure, you know, some people
I have a lot of guys, man.
Some people are in both camps, right? In other words, they've done professional content creation, but they're also in the ET issue.
Yep.
But usually you can kind of tell which one to pick, right? Like, for instance, Steve Spielberg has made a lot of movies about extraterrestrials, you know, and everything. But he's going to be in the film industry side, right?
Right.
But some people actually could make a choice. But anyway, I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much. Until next time, my friend.
And we'll talk. Yeah. And we'll talk. And everyone, get out there, do your part, and have a happy holiday season. Steve, thank you, and to your family, and to everything that you've done. This 26-mile race, you are almost at the end, my friend.
As it happens, yes. All right, man. Bye.